everyone, and thank you for joining us for another Big Bagoneer Bonanza event. Yay! So this evening or this afternoon, depending on where in the world you are, we are blessed to have with us the incredible VarnaElaine from Thanks My Grandma Made It. And VarnaElaine is going to be talking to us today about how to choose fabrics for bag making. So if you have any questions, if you find yourself always using the same colors, or always using browns or navies, or just one color all the time, hopefully some of the advice that VarnaElaine has for you this evening will help you to break out of your comfort zone a little bit, mix it up a little bit, and try something new. Be bold and be bright. So I'm going to bring VarnaElaine on now. We'll have a little bit of a chat, and then see what advice VarnaElaine has for you. So welcome, VarnaElaine. Hello. How are you today?
I am doing wonderful.
Fantastic.
How
I can see
you?
Oh, I'm very well, thank you. I can see we've got a little bit of a lag in connection here. So viewers, if you miss anything that VarnaElaine says, don't be afraid to say in the comments, and we can cover that again. So it should, hopefully it'll all be fine. Okay. So it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon where you are right now, isn't it?
Yes, it's pretty cloudy though. For some reason, just being Oklahoma, we're cloudy and cool and like it's fall again.
Oh wow! So a bit like a second autumn, I suppose, a second fall, as you you say. Well, hopefully it'll get sunny again for you very soon. So have you lived in Oklahoma all your life?
No, I've lived here longer than I lived where I grew up. I grew up in Kansas, and my great grandmother lived here in Enid, Oklahoma, and it was, we got to ride the train and walk to grandma's house. She's really my great grandma. So, it was really special to know my great grandmother like that.
Oh, that does sound absolutely lovely. Viewers, those of you who are watching us, please let us know where in the world you're watching from. I can see our own Mrs. H is watching. She's down in Cornwall. So before we get started, before we go into your advice for this evening, it'd be lovely to get to know you a little bit better, if that's okay, VarnaElaine. So how long have you been sewing for? What started you sewing?
Well, this can be a long story, but I'll make it as short as I can. I was one of those children that asked my mother 1,000 questions. And I guess one Saturday I asked her the wrong question. She called my grandma, told my grandma I was on my way. And for the first time, I got to walk to my grandmother's house all by myself. I was about 10 years old. And when I got there, my grandmother had material laid out and everything as she taught me to hand sew what we called back then a broomstick skirt.
Oh.
And it is just a simple gathered skirt, and you tied it around a broom. You wet the fabric, tied it around a broomstick, and it made the pleats. So that was my first experience in sewing.
Wow.
And I had my aunt, my mother's youngest sister, could already sew. And so then, of course, I was very competitive with her. She's only a couple of years older than I am. And so whatever she could make, I could make.
Nice.
And so that's how I got started sewing. And then, I don't know, I'm short, very. So it was sometimes a lot easier to make my own clothes than to buy them. And then in college, it became a little bit of a money maker. All college kids are poor, so it was cheaper to get some fabric and make something. And that's just how it started. I've been sewing practically all my life.
Wow, that's incredible. And am I right in thinking you've only come into bag making over the last short while? You've mostly been working on clothing until now.
Yeah, I for bag making, I've always made garments, but for bag making, I was having some problems with my back, and I couldn't sit long enough to make a dress. It was like up and
Mm.
down, you know. And so I thought this is ridiculous. But the sewing helped me focus and take my mind off back pain. So
Yes.
and I can't even oh, I always bought the bag of the month club membership. Not that I'd ever made a bag, but
Oh,
I thought the patterns were so cool and the membership was so reasonable that I thought, well, that made sense to me. Just buy it. So I finally decided to make a bag. It's the bag of the month club. And then Mrs. H contacted me and I became a tester for her. That's kind of my journey into bag making.
yes, yeah. I think I'm trying to remember. I think your first bag of the month club might have been the Rising Stars season. I think
I don't know. Is
so.
the one with the duffel bag tote? This one?
Yes, the duffel backpack's one of your very first bags, isn't it? We
Yeah.
totally fell in love with the stripes with the flowers. What a wonderful decision. I know you're going to tell us a bit about how you came to the decision to use those fabrics later, so I won't spoil it now.
Okay.
I won't keep you much longer, but I know that our viewers always want to know what kind of sewing machine do you use?
Oh, I have just a basic Janome. It's a Janome 8100. The aunt that I told you about that sews, well, she is a professional tailor and she's a quilt maker now. And so my husband asked her what would be the best sewing machine to get for me. And she recommended that because she said that it's a workhorse and there's not too much I could do to break it. And that's what I have. So I have a
Wonderful.
little brother, a little basic brother, kind of as a backup. But yeah, that's the only machine I have, and I probably won't buy another one because I spend most of my money on fabric.
I don't think you're alone in that at all. We do seem to keep talking about the fact that most of us have got stashes of one kind or another, and I think most of us have got as big a pattern library as you have as well. I'm sure there's plenty of folk down in the watching this right now
Yeah.
bag patterns they've not yet made. So I'm really glad though that we persuaded you to join the world of bag making through Bag of the Month Club. It looks like Samantha, yeah, Mrs. H herself has said that's how we hook you in on bag making.
Absolutely.
And Samantha as well, again, she's a member of Fabric Buyers Anonymous.
Oh, we've got to help for that, huh?
Well, hopefully some of the advice you're given this evening will encourage people to dive into their stashes and mix and match things that they might not have previously considered putting together before. So viewers, while you're watching, if you have any questions for VarnaElaine, don't be afraid to pop them down below in the comments, and I'll do my best to pop those up on the screen at appropriate times times for you, VarnaElaine. But if you're happy to carry on, I'm going to hand over the screen to you and fade out into the background. I know you've got some things that you'd like to share that are on the internet itself. So I've got my screen set up ready for you. When you're ready for that, you tell me what to click on, and I will click on it, and we'll show that on the screen for you all now if you'd like to click along. So, thank you, VarnaElaine, for doing this. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Have fun.
Thank you. Well, let's see. I would like to start. It's going to kind of be like in three segments. We'll talk about colors and matching, and then I'll talk a little bit about textures because sometimes the colors you pick can imply a texture. And then sometimes the texture of the fabric you pick can either overwhelm or underwhelm a color. So that all is kind of important when you're picking fabric to make bags or even clothes, anything. But I'm going to start with color. First of all, I want to remind you that black is not a color. Black is the absorption of all colors. The way that we know it's a color is because light reflects back, and that's why we see a color, because what's reflected back at us and what's not absorbed into the fabric or the surface. Now, of course, we don't all see colors the same. So it's hard to know when you're matching and not matching some colors. Like blacks don't really match because using dyes and pigments to make black, if you use different colors, all colors range around, of course, everybody knows the three primary colors. If you do use different variants of those three primary colors, then you get different variants of black. So it's hard to match black. And another color that I found that's hard to match is red, because there's so many different shades of red, depending on what else is added to it. And I've always found what has been advertised or what's sold as a true red actually has a little bit of a blue tint in it. So that's a little bit of background on colors. Now, yes, you can. You can wear a whole outfit in black and be wearing three different shades of black. So, and I know, but I have done it so many times, and I don't realize it until I walk out into the sunlight. And then I'll think, oh, well, this black of my blouse does not quite match the black of my pants. But that's okay. Basically, all black goes together. It's black. So now, when I'm picking fabric for bags, or when I'm picking fabric, I have bought fabric just because it exists and I liked it. And one of the highlights of any vacation I take is finding a fabric store and buying something that I've never seen in a fabric store at home. So I have tons of fabric without a purpose. Most of the time, though, I buy fabric with a purpose. And it can take me 2 or 3 or even a week to pick the fabric for a bag. And that's another thing I like about bag making too, because there's no rush. Even when I'm testing, um, you get plenty of time to gather your materials. Part of that is because a lot of it has to be ordered online, but you also, that gives you plenty of time to select your fabric. And I'm going to show you, since this was the first bag I made, that I bought this fabric with no idea in mind what I was going to make out of it. All I know is that the stripes matched the print, and that was perfect for me. I am a matchy person. Like, I don't like anything to not contrast so much as to not mix. I don't like prints that don't mix, and I never wear circles and stripes and that kind of stuff. I don't like, if I wear circles, and then it has to be with circles or a totally different print like the stripes and the flowers. And so that's another thing for me. And so it was hard at first not to, my first instinct was to make the whole bag the same fabric. And then I thought, boring, that's not going to work. And so the first bag I tested, this was the button lock bag. And you can see like the whole bag is the same fabric. And then I thought, I got to change it up so it looks different. So I added a stripe that is from the same fabric company as the print. And so that's how I got away with adding something a little bit different. Sometimes you have to start out a little bit slow uh, in order to get yourself away from, all solid colors or all the same prints or things like that. Now, one of the things I did, and I don't even know why I did this. This is the Aspen bag. And I can tell you this was a major step for me because I just don't mix stuff up like this. I really don't. And as you can see, the dominant color is gold and it's a solid color. But what fascinated me about this fabric was that it had opposites. It's totally opposite. And here I have a piece of the fabric, so I'll show you. So the stripe on the fabric is opposites. There's white and then black. And the print on those stripes are opposites. It's the exact same print that's on the white base as is on the black base. And they are opposite on the fabric. So like, all right, I'm not dealing well with this mirror image. Go this way. There. You see that is all the same as this over here. It's the exact opposite. And that really fascinated me. And that fabric took me out of my comfort zone. And so I bought it. But then how to get it on the bag that satisfied my need to have things matchy matchy. And with the Aspen bag was the perfect bag for something like this because the pattern pieces lended themselves to being to adding this. So I did a lot of measuring, a lot of cutting, and a lot of recutting, and a lot of more cutting, and that's how I came up with this bag. But you see that everything matches. So I know it seems like it's conflicting, but it's not really. And and then this bag, the Hope bag, I made out of this print. Now this is an apparel canvas or duck cloth, I guess you could call it. And I picked this out because it was a really gloomy winter day, and I just was like, yuck. So I was going through my stash. This fabric hit my eye. I pulled it out and made the bag with it because it just seemed like sunshine to me. So sometimes you have to let your mood guide you towards another color, and it sometimes will take you to another color. Now, some of you said that you like blues or browns or the same color palette. Something you might do is get you a color spectrum or a color card, go to the color you like, and see what other colors coordinate with it. Find the brightest one you have, stick with the color you like, but let it be in the background, like maybe the lining or maybe the handles or something like that. And use that brighter color. You're still within what you like to use, and you just venture. I mean, nobody has to jump out from matching solid colors to this. That's a bit extreme, but anyway. So when you do things like that, when you want to change up, make sure that when you change, you stay within the colors you like at first, and then you can venture out. And another color that I have found very fascinating is the colors of cork. Maybe cork can help you venture out. Now, when I first saw the pattern for the whole bag, I thought, oh man, I want a red and black bag. I thought, I'm not accepting anything else. So I looked, couldn't find a red I liked. Everything was either orange red or blue, red. I wanted red. Red, red, red. So I found this in the cork and I really did like it. And then I made masks for a while. Didn't like doing that. And so I found this fabric that I don't know if you can tell has little gold sparkles in it. And I thought that's perfect. So that's what my lining is the black with the little gold sparkles. So it's red on the outside, black on the inside, just what I was looking for. All right. Does anyone have any questions about um, just colors in general that they're interested in? Okay. Now, one of the things that I do is I order a lot of my fabric online from a company called eQuilters. I started out with them because they give 2% of all of their sales to a charity. Any charity. You can pick the charity or you can let them pick their charity. Also, they open their warehouse a couple of times a year and they have quilting guilds come in and make quilt tops. These quilt tops get used for get finished by equilter staff. They get quilted and whatever you do to quilts, and they are given away as a charity. Like if there's a country that has a disaster or something, then equilters gives them the quilt tops. So that's what got me started there. But what keeps me there, if Lizzie could bring up the screen, is eQuilter's fabric is sorted by designer and by brand. So the brand that I like that this came from is Venertex. And what Venertex does is all of their fabric come in a season. So they had Catitude and Doggone, and they had Horse something, and everything in the title. If it's like this one says horses around, everything that says horses around matches the the background fabric. They'll have dots, they'll have swirls, but everything is the same dye lot. So that anything you put together in that group that has the same name is going to match. The color lots will match exactly. And a lot is just like I showed you in that other fabric. So there's the horses, and they have the different dots, the swirls, all of that, all of the colors match exactly. And you can do that with any of the designers. A few of the designers don't do that, but a lot of them do. Also, when you want your colors to match, check out whether the designer or the brand has done solids to go with them, because that's another thing. In eQuilter, you can click on a color inside the design and then click on find this color, and it'll bring up all the solids that go with that design. So it's really nice. Fabric.com has a design window that you can do something similar. This has a design window. I trying to think of another one that might have, but I stick mostly with eQuilters. I checked and they have international shipping. Now, those of you that are not in the States, I know you have to deal with that and how long it takes. But anything that you pick in that color range. And that's how you can get an exact match for your designs. So if you pick the same designer, or like if you buy fabric, you know what's on the salvage, the color dots and the name of the designer and the name of the company or brand. And you can pick the same for your solids, for your other prints. If you get that same designer and the same company, your colors will match exactly. And that's a real boon for me because I'm just that way. I like things to really match and to blend. And one of the things I found out also, uh, thank you, Miss Lizzie. One of the things that I've also found is that when you're matching colors, take it outside in the sunlight. Now, I'm a very privileged person because Hobby Lobby will actually let me carry my bolts to the front window. Now, they don't let everybody do that, so you got to get in good with the girl that cuts the fabric. But they will let me, they know what I do, and they will let me take the bolts to the front window to get in sunlight. Because if you're not in white fluorescent light, then you really don't see the true colors. And like I said before, because colors depend on reflection and what you see, not everybody sees the same colors. So take it to the front window if they'll let you and check your colors matching that way. Does anybody else have any more questions about matching colors? Yeah, it is hard. And one of the hardest things is when you're online matching colors. That's why I like eQuilter, because if it's the same designer, the same season, you're right. That is right. The question is that green goes with everything. Nature doesn't limit its flowers to only what goes with the green leaves. And you're right. Green happens to be one of those colors that I struggle with, and I have to make myself use green. And every time I do, I'm amazed at how well it blends in. The biggest thing is I don't ever want green to overwhelm what I'm doing. That's another thing you have to think about. Once you pick your pattern, then you have to think in terms of what do I want to be dominant and where do I want it on the pattern. And so that's how you pick your accessory colors. Like, oh, let's see. Oh, the day tripper that I made. This is red, of course. I, I think I like red, but I didn't want just red. I wanted something on it to just kind of pop, but I didn't want it to take over. So I picked this fabric and uh, and it's got purple in it. Well, you can't see it on here, but each one of these little floral designs has a little dot under it. And I took it outside, and to me, that little dot looked purple. So I got this fabric that's got purple in it and the same red. So that's what I lined it with. And then I brought just a little bit of it on the outside just to break up the red. And of course, then I use silver accessories. So, and that's my day tripper. I did that with the sew along we had the other day. And it really helped because there were several things that I know I would have had to redo or rip out if I hadn't been watching the sew along. So I really appreciated that. Yeah, no. No, there's not a color I won't use, but I will tell you this, I rarely use brown. Now I use black, like in my saddlebag, the mountain saddlebag. I use the black. I was going to use this later to talk about textures, but And I almost didn't use black. I almost used brown because in the print, there's a lot of tans and different shades of brown and orange. But I don't know, the black just kind of made it pop. But yeah, I rarely use those. I was going to show you. Um, what do you mean by balancing? Like, are you trying to make them equally weighted so that not one doesn't overpower the other? Because there's always going to be, especially if you're using prints and solids or matching prints like I did with the stripes, one is always going to dominate. So uh, balancing color means that maybe you just need to go to a contrast. Now, here's some fabric that I just bought. This is going to be the outside of the purse. By the way, borders are great for purses because they're even. They only take up so much room across the fabric. So it's real easy to use it to make it even. And see, on this video, that's a dark green, and it doesn't quite look green on the video. And this is the part that's going to be the main bag. Now, if I were picking a color to go with this, what jumps out at me is this gold or orange or brownish color. And another color that jumps out at me is the pink. If those jump out at me, then they're going to overwhelm my print. So the color that I chose to go with is this kind of rust color right here. And I did that. It's going to be the lining and it's going to be the handle, I hope. So that, can you see that it doesn't overwhelm the print, but it pulls out some of the other colors. I really struggle with this reversal thing, with this mirror image. And then it's got little stars in it to break it up. I almost don't use a plain solid anymore. And then I got this print. When selecting a lining, I have to decide, do I want the lining to be more than the outside of the bag? And of course, some people say no. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I want the lining to be more than the bag or darker than the outside. But mostly when I'm considering a lining, I want something that's kind of muted, that doesn't have a whole lot of print in it, but it has something in it. I made a bag for a girl that loves penguins. And I got this grunge print, and it was the penguins, and they were on the rocks, and well, it looked really realistic. And so I used the bigger penguins on the outside, but then there were some small penguins, and I used those on the slip pocket and on the inside, and then the rest of the inside was a neutral color. So I try to stay pretty neutral for a lining. And this is another fabric that I just bought, and it is enough that I couldn't really pick out something dominant. Now I could pick out a color for the lining, which would probably be a real pale blue or flowers, but I didn't. I picked out this cream color for the lining with the little stars on it. And I'm not real happy with it because it's not an exact match. They didn't come out the same season, but I like it. I mean, they're sold by the same company or the same brand, same designer. So That's what I'm going to use with that. But I just couldn't find anything else that matched. And sometimes that happens. I was going to show you a fabric and I can't find it to save my life. I love the waxed Ankara fabric. And what I like about that for bag making is that it's very sturdy. It doesn't shift. It holds its shape really well. The problem with that, I didn't see that question. So the color for that does not jump at you. Okay. Yeah, I like contrasting zippers. I'm just now getting into zippers because I had no earthly idea. Um, Sometimes I go with something, even if it doesn't jump out with me, because I know it goes well together. And sometimes you just have to accept that. That sounds terrible, doesn't it? But it does. So yeah, I am enjoying. Now you brought that up about zippers. I am enjoying doing zipper contrast. I think on this bag, I use that bright yellow, and that's not me. That's awful bright for me. But I can do with bags what I can't do for my own clothes, and that is I can come out of my comfort zone and use some colors that pop. And if nobody sees it, then that's fine. As in this one, I used the white with the black because it reminded me of the black stripe in the fabric that goes down between there. And so, yeah, I'm starting to really enjoy zipper sets since you brought that up. So, if you have some more questions, be sure and put them in. Even after I'm done, I'm going to go back. If you've put a question in, I will go back and type in an answer if I can. Next, I'm going to talk about textures. And the reason I'm going to talk about textures is because sometimes fabrics give off a texture. And I have a quilt that my aunt made for me, which I think is a good example of changing the texture of your fabric. If I can find it. Sorry, I said not. Yeah, it matches the purse. I didn't realize it till I bought the fabric for the purse. I don't know how well you can see this, but we've got the stripes here. This is the stripes of the purse. And then we've got this fabric right here. It doesn't match any colors, but because it's not a specific design, it does imply a texture because to me it makes me think when I put my hand on it, it's going to be bumpy. So sometimes you can use prints that don't exactly match that help change the texture of your fabric. Now you say, well, is it like cork or false leather or vinyl? Something that changes the texture? Absolutely. And this, when I first got ready to do the saddle bag, I got a plain black vinyl that was smooth. And I didn't like it. It didn't help the bag, I guess I could say. So at first I was going to put it on the inside and put the print on the outside, but I knew that I wanted this and this part of the side to be in the print because I had the back and the front as a print. So I just happened to be going through some little pieces of vinyl and stuff that I had, and I found this textured snakeskin type vinyl. And it totally changed how the black looked on the purse. So, and with that around like that, Also keeps the bottom clean. It I don't think it takes over the purse, but I think it does enhance it. Now you can also mess up like I did on this one. This is the goldfinch purse or bag in one of the bag of the month club. And I used this waxed Ankara fabric. And I'm thinking that's got to have black on it. Well, that's fine, except as you can see, it kind of overwhelms the color of the fabric. And another mistake I made is what I got, the fabric I got. I was in Hobby Lobby and I saw this shiny black and I thought, oh, that's pretty. Well, it said synthetic vinyl. When I bought it and got it home, it's fabric. It's not a vinyl. I tried to use it as a vinyl and it really does not set well on top of that fabric. If I had used a smooth black vinyl or false leather or even a cork, it would have looked a whole lot better. And so, I don't carry this purse very much or use it because I just messed up. It doesn't hold the shape like a vinyl would. And so you have to be careful what fabric you get. On the other hand, I made a Hope bag for a friend. She wanted a leather like bag, but she wanted it to be really soft and pliable. And so what I did is I got an apparel false leather fabric. And by doing that, I treated it like a fabric. I put the interfacing on it, the foam, and everything. And when she got it, she said she couldn't believe that I had actually made a purse that was exactly what she was looking for. If I had used a regular false leather or vinyl, it would have been too stiff. And so sometimes that changes the texture. I didn't even take a picture of that purse before I sent it to her. I can't believe I did that. Cork changes the texture against the fabric. And, oh, here it is. I did my Belize with an Ankara waxed, but it's so dark brown that I wanted something to draw away from that brown color. So I used cork with gold flecks in it. But I saw a purse online the other day. It used a smooth green vinyl, light green vinyl, and the fabric had a heavy print in it. And so in that instance, the texture lended itself to the fabric and not the vinyl. So, you can go either way with textures, but you might want to consider what kind of texture your fabric lends itself to. I have one here that now when you look at that, that looks like a vinyl on top of a vinyl, but it's not. The top part is a fabric and it's got kind of a shiny, cracked kind of look to it. I don't know if you can tell. And then the bottom is a textured vinyl. But the white part dominates because it's shiny and it has that little cracked surface look to it. But it is cotton. So, when you talk about textures, you can do textures with either fabric or vinyl or cork. So, in that, I wanted to put that in there because sometimes when you start trying to change, branch out with colors and everything, you need to take into consideration what kind of texture the changes in colors are going to bring to your bag. So anybody have any questions? thing about this is I can't see who's asking the questions, but that's okay. I'll check later. And I also am going to go back and write in answers. Well, it's something that I thank you, number one. And it is something that has taken time and years and just trial and error. I I don't know. It's just like I have one piece of fabric that I got when I was in Washington D.C. and I want to make something out of it so bad, but there is no pattern that speaks to me about this fabric. And this fabric doesn't push me towards any kind of pattern. And I know that sounds terrible. And it's like the red cork purse. I mean, that came to me in my sleep. I know that sounds crazy, but it did. It came to me in my sleep. And doing this bag, I don't know why I did this bag. I just did. It just came to me and I just worked with it. It took me forever. So you can learn it. It's not really hard. You just start with the colors you like and just get a quarter of a yard and start laying and matching and mixing and find prints that contain a color in it that you like, but you know isn't dominated by that color, and start working that way. You just have to go practice. You have to go play at the fabric store. And believe me, let's see what bit of print to use. It just, I lay the pattern in front of me and I decide if I want it to be a print. I don't know. That, let me just be honest. I don't know. It comes to me. And then I pull out fabric. I've had fabric all over my room because I thought, oh, that'll look good. But then I pull it out and lay it out. Now, sometimes I'll send the colors to my sister. I'll send them to my aunt. I'll send them to my daughter-in-law and tell them to pick two. And if all three of them pick one that's the same, that's the one I go with. Oh no, you can't. Yeah, you can't use the same hardware finish for all your bags. It has to coordinate. Like I had for this day tripper, I had pulled out all gold hardware, and that's what I was going to use. But then when I put the purple fabric with it, I couldn't. The gold didn't work, and there was. I love gold. I love it, but then oh, what I do with that? I have that little bag. What I do with? Oh, here it is. Like for this one, I did the rainbow zipper, and I did gold hardware, but I've used the gunmetal, and I've used the copper. I've used the antique, which is what I use for this. And you'd think I would use gold because it's gold, but then when I put it together, it was too much. And so I toned it down and used the antique gold. Oh, I have to tell you a story about this bag. When I made this bag, because I cried the whole time I was making it, because I decided to fussy cut so that the design remained the same even through the pocket. Okay. I sweated and cried and carried on, put the handles on, took a picture of it, and thank you, by the way, Miss Heavy, Mrs. H. Anyway, took a picture of it and posted it on Bag of the Month Club. Well, they monitor what you post, which is a good thing. And so I waited and waited and waited. It never got posted. And I picked up the bag and I kept looking at it. And I picked it up by the handles. and the handles were facing the wrong direction. I have gone across the bag instead of the way the handles are supposed to go. And I don't know who actually approves it or not. Switched it up real quick, put another picture up, and it was posted immediately. And I thought, thank you, whoever did that, because they wouldn't post it with it wrong. And I appreciate that because that bothers me. But I really, really appreciated that. And but that just tickled me. And I waited for it to be posted. And I said, well, what's the deal? And I don't know what made me go back and look at it, but the handles were wrong. And whoever on the team caught it, just waited. And sure enough, I fixed them and so that was funny, but I appreciated that very much. So I've only got like a few minutes left. Oh gosh, you love zippers too? It depends on something like this where the top is like white or solid color. Um, I don't necessarily match the zipper coil so much as I match the zipper fabric because I could have used a gold zipper coil for this. I could have used a purple one or, some other color, but I would have made sure it was on the white zipper. So it just kind of depends. Now, if it's a print, I'm having fun with zippers right now. I got some zippers that are like Star Wars, whatever. It's they got the galaxy and all that stuff. And of course, I'm looking for fabric to match the zipper. It doesn't matter what end I start at. It's always, it's in my drawer and it's waiting patiently for its fabric to speak to me. So, the last little thing I want to talk about is fussy cutting. I think, oh my goodness, it is hard. Yes, it is hard. It's hard. And if there's something that I think like this bag where I want it even through the pocket for the design to match, I make sure that I buy 2 to 3 times the amount of fabric that's needed. Because there have been times when I found the exact match in this part of the fabric and the other piece way over here in this part of the fabric, depending on how the design repeats. And all designs repeat. You just have to find it. And it's just like in this bag that I did here. This is a one-way, that stripe is a one-way design. And so I had to make sure, just because I'm that kind of person, is make sure that the one-day design continued to go so that when it came up through here, it was a continuation of the direction of the design here. And what lets you know that it's a continuation, because this little one here that has the blue down here, if you continue up, it continues the same pattern, and there it is again. Okay, and I know. Also, with this print, it has little flowers up here. And so for the casing, I also fussy cut or I matched the print continuation on the casing so that it was a continuous design all the way up to here. And sometimes it takes a lot of fabric, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the fabric speaks to itself. This, of course, is perfect for fussy cutting because it's already done for you. The black and the white backgrounds are the only thing different. The designs are exactly the same. So it's not hard to line it up and cut. And someone says that they've never done fussy cutting. So I'll explain a little bit. Fussy cutting is when you have a design that even though the pattern has a cut in it or joins a seam, that's what I'm looking for. Even though the pattern has a seam in it, you want the design to continue across seamlessly. So you where your pattern is going to join seamlessly, you've got to cut the design so that it continues. Well, you've also got your seam allowance in there too, so you can't cut it together unless the designs are mirror image, and then you can. But you cut part of your design, you mark your fabric where you want it to join, and usually you join where it moves. Like if I was going this way, I would join either where the zigzag makes a V, or I would join where the design starts to change differently. Okay, you all know I'm struggling, so yeah, like right in here. There's not a whole lot in there, so it'd be easy to match that design right there. And what you have to do is you have to cut one part on one side of the design and then add the seam allowance. Then you'd have to cut the other part on the other part of the side of the design and add the seam allowance. So it's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle. But here's what makes it easier for me. I started out using the window, taping my fabric up on the window and then moving it until they aligned. And then I'd do a big whip stitch around the area that I was going to cut or pin it. You can do that. But then I made a light table. Gosh, I guess it was 6 or 7 years ago. There was a little post about a girl who had taken a glass desk and put a light under it, just stood a lamp under it. And so when I retired, I had a glass desk that I brought home and I put a light under it, except I put light bars under it so the lighting was even across the table. That way I could lay my fabric out on there, match it up, and then cut, because I could cut on the table too that way. And it was laying down, I could just cut it right then. And one of the drawbacks for fussy cutting is these fabrics nowadays are printed on. They're not woven. The design is not woven in. Of course, that makes sense. Some of these designs are so intricate, you couldn't weave them in. So sometimes it's hard to line them up. And then I go old school. And anybody that's been sewing more than 10 years probably knows this. When I first took home ec in school, the very first thing we did with our fabric was pull it on the diagonal grain in order to realign the horizontal grain. And so we take, gosh, it was tedious. We take a thread and pull it through all the way across the horizontal grain. And like if you had the edge and you pulled your thread, and when it got through, it went uphill, then you knew which way you had to pull it to realign the grain of the fabric. And I have done that with some of this fabric that's printed, just enough so that I can get the images to match so that I can fussy cut. Cool things to fussy cut are, of course, lines, stripes, anything geometric, because you can measure and cut on those. Another thing that's easy to fussy cut is a print that has a line or something in it, because you can line up on that and you can see how the design, there's not a lot for the design, this print, this design, then this design, and then it repeats. Another fabric that's really good for fussy cutting is a border print, because border prints not only repeat, but they're only so wide. And so it's easy to print. Like there's a motif right here. Whoops, sorry. Right here. And then it repeats again over here. So it's real easy to line those motifs up, and then you can line them up opposite, just like you're folding fabric on a fold, but you fold it down the middle between them and line them up exactly. Cut your seam allowance in with the rest of the pattern, and when you sew it, it'll be exactly lined up. So mostly when I do fussy cutting, it's something that's geometric or a border print. So I really have had fun. This is neat. You know, it's just my husband and I because of course my children are grown and my grandchildren don't live here. And so, he reaches a point where talking about fabric, like, didn't you tell me that like yesterday or something? So this has been really fun getting to talk about something I really love, and that is fabric. I just love fabric. I have fabric that hasn't told me yet what it wants to be made into, but it will eventually. Anyway, so if there's no more questions and everybody has finished, I think that about wraps it up.
VarnaElaine, that's been amazing. I've learned a lot for sure, and I had a lot of fun as well playing on that website. For everyone who's watching, if you don't already use that website, I'll put the link in later for you. If anyone has any more questions, get them in quickly now. Otherwise, I'm gonna let VarnaElaine go off and enjoy the rest of her day. Oh, we've got lots of thank yous coming in now for us. So thank you so much for your time. From Tammy, Cheryl says thanks for sharing your experience with us.
My husband has driven me all over practically the country to buy fabric. He drives me to a little town about 15 minutes away. He's really a trooper. He really is.
Oh, that's lovely. Well, if you ever have a piece of fabric and you're not sure what to make with it, this goes for everyone who's watching as well. You can always put a picture of your fabric up in the group and ask us for suggestions, and we'll come up with some ideas for you for what it might become next, if that speaks to you. Before I let you go, what are you going to make next? I forgot to ask.
Well, I found a pattern. I am going to do the I think it's not the ring sling, the squiffy.
Oh, the squiffy sling.
Yes, I'm going to do that because I bought that pattern. I've been wanting to make it. I bought the hardware. I've been wanting to make it. I just haven't
Guess
done
what? We've got a sew along for the squiffy sling next week.
Yeah, that's what I'm waiting for.
It's quite early in your day. I think it's about 11 o'clock your time, I think.
Okay, that's perfect.
It's
I'm retired.
5 o'clock UK time. So
I'm good.
So yeah, that's with TT from Pattern Mix Crafts, and in theory she's going to be sewing Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday from 5 o'clock. But squiffy sling's quite quick, so we're not sure how many days it will take her. It's going to be fascinating finding out. So you're making a squiffy sling. Have you picked out your fabric yet?
Yes, but I'm not going to show you.
Oh, it'll be a surprise. So everyone's going to have to
see it. I can't tell you.
Everyone's going to have to be watching the group and keeping an eye on your feed as well, which I haven't shared yet. Keeping an eye on your pages so that they can see what it becomes. So okay. That's really exciting. So yeah, everyone, if you want to see more of what VarnaElaine has made, get a bit of a close up of some of those bags, some more information. Here's the information. Well, here's the information over this side. So you're on
do some posting, and I didn't realize I hadn't posted some of my makes. I need to photograph that day tripper. So But that was a cute bag. It's just like, oh my. And the
It's
tips that she gave
gorgeous.
us. Everybody go and watch that video and do that sew along. It was
Yes,
great.
that was Nova. Last weekend, I'm looking at my calendar now because all the days are starting to merge into one. Yeah, that was last weekend. And you can still watch it under the media video section here in the group. And I think I've tagged it under the guides as well, but you can yell at me if I haven't. And Nova also does copy her videos over to YouTube when she gets a chance. So if that's easier for you, go click follow on Nova's Knits on YouTube. And as soon as she has a chance to put those up, you'll get a notification. So, but yeah, go follow follow VarnaElaine, also known as Thanks My Grandma Made It, although you do not look old enough to be a grandma. So
absolutely I am. My granddaughter's still in grade school, so by the time she gets to be a teenager, she's gonna have to come see me in the old folks home.
Oh, well, I don't think we've got any more questions coming in, although lots and lots of people have said you're more than welcome to talk about fabric with them anytime that you want to. So I think you've got a lot of friends ready and waiting for you there. Well, thank you so much for sharing, your time, your experience, your knowledge with us. It's been really informative. It's been really helpful. So yeah, thank you, VarnaElaine, and look forward to seeing what you make next.
Okay then, thank you.
All right, ta-ra for now. Wow, that was amazing. I can see a lot of you really enjoyed yourselves as well. I know I've learned so much about choosing colours that I'm bound to be using myself. As you know, I'm a bit of a knitter and crocheter, so I'll be using those tips myself and picking out the colours that I use for the things that I make in future. So obviously tomorrow, as you may recall, we have Natalie from So Hungry Hippie, who will be joining us to talk about how she got into sewing and bag making, and to answer your questions about how to use vinyl fabric, which is really exciting. And then we're giving you Friday and Saturday off from the Big Bag and Ear Bonanza, because over in Swoon, Nova is going to be doing a sew along for the Frankie handbag. So we didn't want to clash with that. So if you fancy doing a little sew along this weekend of something a little bit different, pop over to the Swoon Patterns group, and Nova will be sewing the Frankie. And then we are back here again for the Big Bag and Ear Bonanza on Sunday. Tammy is going to be looking at the convertible bag at Sunday and Wednesday. And as I mentioned, we've got TT is going to be sewing the Squiffy Sling all of next week. So as always, you can see all of these events in the guides section here in the group. They're also on the events page of our main Facebook page, and you'll find the details on our website as well. We've got a calendar on our website now to try and make it a little bit easier for you. I think that's everything that I wanted to cover for now. But I want to, again, thank you all for joining us. And again, if you have any questions about what's going on, pop us a little message down below, or send a message to the page, or you can email me anytime. I'm at Lizzie@mrs-h.com. Thanks everyone for joining us, and have a lovely Big Bag and Ear Bonanza.